Hurricane. Barrett wraps round. This is excellent from the Hurricanes. Now Fineanganofo skirting for the corner. Oh! Kind of split them open. Hurricane fires away for Fineanganofo for a second. Geordie Barrett gets the ball away beautifully. Lucky. Oh, he's going to go for three. The hat-trick.
Here's Proctor. Goes wide to Fineanganofo. And off he goes.
And it wasn't a simple run in either.
Left. They've just put it through the hands here, and they will go in. Fineanganofo comes and away comes Devon Flanders. He's got plenty of pace. He's got a man though with express pace on his outside. Taken by Yossek and the Hurricanes on the blind side. That's a lovely ball. Lucky. He's up for the red. Short side is the option. No, it's not. It is absolutely not.
He's got
because Fehi.
Love is going to sweep the kick across for Fineanganofo. What a great kick. Goes to Proctor, linking up wide with Fineanganofo, looking to get on the outside of Tangita. Then comes to the left. And wide it goes, and Finney ball's there, and Ari goes again. Barrett.
Inside Roygaard, finds some space, on good hands, down the left, off they go. Forsyth missing, and neither of the Canes. Roygaard looking dangerous. Fineanganofo. Roygaard looks for the...
With lovely width on that one, it is you know who. Come out the back. Fineanganofo is on the edge. He bounces infield and back. First half tries. We see you. In goes Frost, who bounce passes to Valentini. It's lost. Fineanganofo towing it ahead for himself. Edmund V. Fineanganofo. No way. He's got four.
New Zealand Rugby has built its reputation on one thing better than almost anyone else in the world: producing world-class outside backs. Speed, footwork, finishing, instinct. It's part of the system, part of the identity. But what happens when the same system develops elite talent, only to lose it before the All Blacks can fully cash in? That's exactly what happened with Fehi Fineanganofo, a player many believe was destined for the highest level, now heading offshore while only still scratching the surface of what could only become. And the bigger question isn't why he left. The bigger question is why New Zealand Rugby couldn't keep him. Because this isn't just about another player, it's about a growing trend. A trend that could eventually hurt the New Zealand National Rugby Union team more than people realise. The scary thing about Fehi is that none of this came out of nowhere. The talent was obvious from the start. At Auckland Grammar School, one of New Zealand's most famous rugby factories, Fehi quickly became one of the standout schoolboy players in the country. That's saying something, because Auckland Grammar has produced some serious names over the years. But Fehi stood out for different reasons. He wasn't just quick, he was explosive, powerful, hard to bring down, and he had that rare ability to make defenders miss in tight spaces. That's not something you teach, that's instinct. It wasn't long before he earned selections for the New Zealand Schoolboys Rugby Union team, which for many young players is the first real sign that the pathway to professional rugby is opening. At that point, the trajectory looked obvious. Schoolboy star, provincial system, Super Rugby, All Blacks. It felt like the script had already been written. But rugby careers are really that simple. Before Fehi could launch into his professional 15s, everything stopped. An ACL injury, one of the hardest injuries for any explosive outside back to recover from. For a player whose game depends on acceleration, power and confidence of movement, it can change everything. Suddenly, the fast rise stalled. The hype disappeared. The spotlight moved on, and in New Zealand Rugby, when the system keeps producing talent, it moves quickly. And that's what makes Fehi's story so different. A lot of players don't recover the same. Some lose confidence, some lose speed, some lose opportunity. But Fehi found another path. Instead of forcing his way back into the 15-man game immediately, he rebuilt through the 7 system. And that decision might have saved his career. Joining the New Zealand National Rugby Sevens teams gave something he desperately needed: minutes, freedom and confidence. Sevens is brutal. There's nowhere to hide. If your defence is weak, you get exposed. If your fitness isn't elite, you get found out. And if your speed is gone, everyone sees it. Fehi passed every test. Suddenly, people started noticing again. The explosiveness was back. The footwork was sharper, the confidence looked stronger than ever. And on the 7th circuit, he became one of New Zealand's most dangerous attacking weapons. Not just surviving after injury, but evolving. And then came the biggest stage of all, the 2024 Summer Olympics. For Fehi, that was massive. Olympic rugby gave him a chance to prove himself again against the best and open space, under pressure and on the biggest sporting platform possible. And while Olympic rugby doesn't always have the same attention as Super Rugby or Test Rugby, New Zealand selectors watch closely, because Sevens has become a serious proving ground. Players like Rieko Ioane and Caleb Clark have shown skills from Sevens that can translate into elite Test Rugby. Speed under fatigue, decision-making under pressure, one-on-one finishing. Fehi looked like the next one. But the transition back into the 15-man rugby was where everything accelerated. When he signed with the Hurricanes, this was excitement, but also caution. Sevens form doesn't always transfer. The physical demands are different. The structures are tighter, defensive systems are more complex. But Fehi adjusted faster than many expected. And once he got going, it became obvious. He wasn't just a good player. That was serious talent. His first Super Rugby season showed exactly why so many rated him highly over the years. He carried hard, beat defenders, finished chances, but what stood out most was how naturally he adapted. No hesitation, no fear. He looked like he belonged immediately. And in New Zealand rugby, that usually means one thing: All Blacks conversations begin. Fans started talking. Analysts started noticing. Could he push into the national contention? Could he force his way into one of the most competitive back three positions in world rugby? Because let's be honest, breaking into the All Blacks back line is brutal. You're competing against players like Will Jordan, Leroy Carter and Caleb Clark, established internationals, proven finishers. And maybe that's part of the problem, because while New Zealand rugby has incredible depth, depth can also create delays. A player can be good enough but still be blocked, still waiting and still hoping. And for a player like Fehi, timing matters. Rugby careers are short. One injury can change everything. One contract decision can define your prime years. So when the overseas offer came, the decision suddenly made sense. Not because he didn't believe in New Zealand rugby, but because professional rugby is also a business. Bigger contracts overseas, financial security, guaranteed opportunities. New environments, these things matter. And increasingly, they matter earlier. That's the part many fans don't want to admit. New Zealand rugby simply cannot match overseas money in many cases, especially for players who are not yet established All Blacks. The gap is real and players know it. So when Fehi chose to leave, some saw it as disappointing, but others saw it as inevitable. And that's where the real conversation starts. Because Fehi leaving isn't the problem, it's the symptom. New Zealand rugby has lost talented players before. Some became stars overseas. Some represented other nations. Some left because the pathway felt blocked. Others left because the money was impossible to ignore. Fehi fits right into that pattern, and the danger is obvious. What happens if New Zealand keeps developing elite talent, but loses them before their peak? What happens when the All Blacks become a finishing school for overseas clubs instead of the final destination? That sounds dramatic, but it's becoming harder to ignore, especially when you look at Fehi's timeline. Injury, recovery, sevens growth, Olympic exposure, Super Rugby breakout. This was the exact moment New Zealand rugby should have been locking him in for. Not reacting after he exploded. Planning before. That's the difference. The best systems don't identify talent, they protect it. And right now, there's a real argument that New Zealand rugby is struggling with that. Not at the top, but in the crucial middle stage, where players are deciding whether to commit long-term or cash in elsewhere. And fans are split on this. Some say Fehi hadn't done enough yet, but one good stretch of rugby isn't enough to just panic. That's fair, but others look at the raw ceiling. And that's where this becomes interesting, because Fehi doesn't look like a finished product. He looks like the beginning of something, and that's exactly why losing him hurts. Imagine if his best rugby is still 3 years away. Imagine if he becomes one of the most dangerous outside backs in Europe. Imagine if New Zealand rugby watches the development from somewhere else. That's the uncomfortable part. Not what Fehi is now, what Fehi could become. And maybe that's why this one feels bigger than others. Because this wasn't a veteran cashing out. This was a young player entering his prime. A player who looked like he was just getting started. And maybe, just maybe, a future All Black. But now, we may never know. So what do you think? Did New Zealand rugby make a mistake letting Fehi go? Or is this just the reality of modern professional rugby? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Because this